Section 5.5 is about doing indirect proofs. Now, I know the word proof makes you want to cringe and it makes you a little scared, but we're not doing any actual proofs here. You're just looking to see what it does and doing the first step in it, but not actually writing them out. So remember, indirect reasoning is all the possibilities considered, and then all but one are proved to be false, so that you know that the remaining must be true. So if I was going to actually write a proof, the first step in it is that I have to state a temporary assumption, the opposite of what you want to prove. And then you show that it leads to a contradiction, and then you conclude that it has to be false and that what you wanted to prove must be true. So we're only going to practice this first step, which is where you're just assuming the opposite to do it. So let's take a look. So here's my first one. It says an integer n is divisible by 5. They want to know what's the first step of the proof. What would you assume? So if I were going to assume this, I would do the negation of that, which would be an integer n is not divisible by 5. Let's look at another one. You do not have soccer practice today. Now, going back to English class, I don't do double negatives, so if you say you do not have soccer practice today, it doesn't make any sense. So then I would make it become you do have soccer practice today. You're going to pause the video and try the got a question. So the first one says triangle box is not acute. So then the opposite of that, you would say triangle box is acute. And then for the next one, at least one pair of shoes you bought cost more than $25. Now I wrote it as at least one pair of shoes you bought does not cost more than $25, which is perfectly fine. There are some others that might rewrite this as saying, since it said at least one, that means one or greater. So the opposite of that would be saying that you have no pair of shoes. So there are 0 pair of shoes you bought that cost more than $25. So some people negate this first part, which is fine. Some people actually negate where you have the verb. Okay, and then the last part is where you identify your contradictions. So this is getting into some vocab. So here it says which two statements contradict each other. So going back to your symbol. So those two lines mean that it's parallel. And remember, in terms of a graph, that means that I would have something like this where they never intersect, okay? Then the next ones have the congruency symbol, so they're saying those two lines are congruent, which means they have the same length. And then last, I have the upside down T, which means it's perpendicular. And in terms of a graph, if it's perpendicular, that means that I have an intersection between the two and that they're going to form a right angle. So which two contradict each other? Well, parallel and perpendicular contradict each other because if I'm parallel, I'm never going to be intersecting. So my answer would be statement 1 and 3 because parallel lines don't intersect. Okay, you're going to pause the video and try the got it question. So it says which two statements contradict each other? So acute means all angles are less than 90. Scalene means all sides are different lengths. Equiangular means all angles are equal or 60 degrees. So which two statements contradict each other? So can I have all angles less than 90 and sides of different lengths? Can I have all sides different lengths and angles all equal to 60? Or can I have, what did I say, the first and the third? All angles less than 90 and all angles equal to 60. Now, here's the thing. If I am equiangular, keep in mind that you should also know what else it is. If I am equiangular, it is also equilateral, which means that all of the sides are equal. So if it's equiangular, it's also equilateral, which therefore means that it can't be scalene. So your answer should be 2 and 3, because equiangular triangles are also equilateral, and so that's the piece that you always need to keep in mind. I should say equiangular. Okay, so remember, we are not doing the full proofs. You are just practicing the first step and practicing finding the contradictions. So the first step is where you assume the opposite, which is the negation of it.